Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. We'll just wait a minute or two for late comers, but those of you who are here live, if you're able to join us with your camera on, we love that. That's amazing. And if not, we also understand. I know sometimes you're juggling lots of things. I'm super excited to welcome Rose to our space today. I have recently signed up for Rose's creative writing trainings, which I had intended to dive into in the last couple of weeks, but then I unexpectedly moved house. So that hasn't happened yet. But I'm really excited to do so because, as you already know, I'm a huge fan of her book and her work in general. And I really love, there are lots of different aspects of Rose's work that I really love. And if you've listened to the podcast that her and I did together, you'll kind of have got a little taste of that. But one of the things that I most appreciate about Rose's work is that she really encourages us to slow down in the writing process. And my tendency as a personality is to rush and to be very focused on productivity. And that can be really important in business. We want to be actually doing the things and getting the work out there. So there's an element of that sort of action energy is important. But when it comes to the written word, especially in the emerging world of I think it's really important that we take the time to slow down and really think about what our stories are and think about what brings our personality into our businesses. And one of the things I've come to realize in the last few months as I've been thinking about AI and my work in the world and our work in the world is that the thing that's going to make the difference as we move forward around which businesses, particularly online businesses, thrive and which don't is individual creativity, it's personality, it's story-led work. It's bringing ourselves into our businesses because in a world where AI can generically create content for us until the end of time, it's our own stories and our own personality and our own skill as teachers and facilitators that will be the difference. And I think that this piece around creative writing is a really, really important part of the jigsaw puzzle that kind of helps build out that fuller picture of what's going to lead to success in business. So that's one of the reasons I invited Rose to join us. I'm very, very happy that she's joining us, specifically to kind of focus in on this idea of creativity in the written word in all the different ways that you use it in your business. So I will hand over to Rose and yeah, let's dive in.
Thanks, Katie. Perfect intro. And like you said, I'm all about the slow and steady wins the race, but I also believe that slowness in the beginning helps you to speed up later. That's really always been my process. And really, I'm about authenticity. And so, even though you guys are ready to build your businesses and get them off the ground, today, our writing session is going to be about how do we get the most authentic words on the page, because I've found that I just can't operate in my business if I'm not being authentic. And I do use tools like AI to help me strategize as well. And sometimes I do use AI to help me to summarize my posts, my longer content. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But at first, we're going to get really nice and slow. And we're going to focus in on who we are, how we become more authentic ourselves, how do we really hone in on what is in the heart, how do we get those words then out on the page. So it's going to be a really, really fun session for you, but I promise you, you're going to go away with lots of techniques and lots of strategy by the end of it. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen so you can see my slideshow. We have a little journaling activity to begin, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about me. And for those of you who have joined the course a little bit late, don't worry, your books are in the post. I posted them out yesterday. So you'll be getting the Heart Writing Handbook, which you can see on the screen very, very soon. So this is a little snapshot from one of the intro activities from the Heart Writing Handbook. And you could just take a photo of that now and come back to these questions later. This could be like a post-class activity if you like, and I will give you a copy of this slideshow as well at the end. But what I'd really like you to do right now is a little grounding activity to get us on the page. And if you could have a journal and a pen ready so that you're handwriting during this session, because handwriting is a great way for us to connect with the body, to get embodied, and to connect with the heart. So my question really today is, when was the last time I felt truly present and inspired? When was the last time I felt truly present? Just give you 1 minute to write down anything that comes to mind. Describe the time when you felt last truly present, and it might have been a while ago. And if you'd like to add your answer in the chat box, you can do so as well. And at any time in this lesson, if you'd like to ask a question, just pop it in the chat box and I'll get back to you. I'm also going to add here my Spotify playlist, which I love putting on the background when I'm writing or when I'm meditating. So I'll add it here in case you'd like that. And maybe you can play that on your phone in the background. And as you're writing this answer, just take a few deep breaths. So open up the heart space and feel into your answer. Feel into your body. What is your body telling you? Are you feeling like you wish you were present a little bit more often? And how does it feel to be present? And just finish writing down your answer. And then jotting down in the chat box, or so I'll read out a few in the chat box first, and then if anyone would like to come off mute, and you could just tell us when was the last time you felt present. So Ko says that it just happened 2 days ago. I had a content create session with Edwina. Beautiful and focused time. Awesome. I love it. So it's almost like we need to force ourselves sometimes to create that presence. Anyone else? Emma says that over the weekend, I went on a self retreat, practicing yoga, slowing down, and eating nourishing food. It all inspires me. Beautiful. I'll just have two more people. Maybe one would like to jump off mute if you would like.
Hello, this is Kalpita. I felt very inspired. Hi, Katie. Hi, everyone. Hi, Rose. I felt very inspired when I ate my food mindfully in last week when I visited Hare Krishna temple, and also when I visited another state. I was on hiking and a very deep forest walk. So that's what I
Beautiful.
recall.
Beautiful. Oh, I love it. Thank you. Katie said, moving house, I was in the moment because I had so much to do. I just had to get on with it. I had no time for distraction or procrastination. In the moment, physical activity. Yeah, that's a really great reminder that our bodies lead us back to presence as well. And sometimes the uncomfortable jobs can actually lead us back to presence. Because it takes you out of the mind and it brings you back into the body just to get it all done. That's beautiful. So the reason I start off often at the start of my workshops with this question is because it's a reminder that to get truly creative, we do need to come back into the present moment and leave everything behind. And in this world of technology, it's really hard to do that. I'm sure that you relate, that you don't even know where to start when you've got technology distracting you all the time, social media distracting you all the time. So I start with this because it gets us thinking, do we spend enough time in presence? And to become more creative, do we need to carve out this time? And this is kind of how I got into heart writing, to be honest. Um, so I might just skip to, so this is how I got into heart writing. This was my first vision of what I wanted to create with heart writing workshops. But really, heart writing started a lot earlier. So if you have read my book yet or read the start of my book yet, you would have discovered that I was a high school English teacher. I was a creative writing specialist already in schools. I was quite burnt out by my career, but the best parts of what I was doing was the creative writing sessions with my students. And I quickly learned, like in my early 20s, I quickly learned that when I got my high school students to do a meditation, they would write so much more powerfully and potently afterwards. So that was my first clue. There's something to do with slowing down the mind and getting really present that was eliciting these amazing results from my students. I actually did this yesterday because I still occasionally teach in high schools as a fill-in teacher. And yesterday I taught a year 10 class that was preparing for the creative section of their exam. And I got them all on the floor, laying down, meditating. And these are kids that don't write very much and they don't have a lot of trust in their writing skills. And I said to them before they started, guys, you are going to be shocked how much you will write by the end of this session. And they said, nah, miss, there's no way we're going to write 1 to 2 pages. We never write that much. I said, you will, and you'll be very amazed at the quality of what you write. Lo and behold, at the end of that session, after my meditation, they wrote furiously, effortlessly. Like the kids that just did not believe in themselves had suddenly so much to say. So this works. And so this was the start of everything. 10, 15 years ago, at the start of my teaching career, I started to notice this pattern with my students that the other teachers, they weren't doing the same thing, yet my classes were writing much better. And this led me to start, educating myself more into adult writing, meditation, yoga. I got into the whole thing until finally I'm here and I've started heart writing. And heart writing is very niche, like not a lot of people believed that heart writing could work, but it works. And now I have this beautiful community. So this class today works in 2 parts. It shows how I believe in the authenticity of the word that comes from the heart. And we can actually teach ourselves to use this wisely for our businesses. Even if it's a niche business, it can actually make us really stand out on the page. But also, you will learn just how to become better writers. So fast forward to, and now I'm teaching heart writing workshops on the Central Coast. I'm actually about to move to the northern beaches of Sydney. So these are some of my first students that I was teaching on the Central Coast. And this was my heart writing retreat that I held in Bali earlier this year. And I'm going to be doing another Bali retreat next year. Blue Mountains retreat is coming up. So it's really now expanding in lots of beautiful directions with books, with editing books for my students, and basically just helping people to love writing and excel with their writing by first tuning into the heart and then learning techniques. So let's take it back. Why do I believe in all of this? Why is writing so important to me? I've done a lot of research in this topic, and it all comes back to human beings tell stories in order to make meaning of life. Stories are part of the rich history of every known society. Each story, across cultures and down the generations, was an attempt to retain history and transmit values. It's not actually just entertaining. This is not just like a marketing strategy, by the way. It's actually essential for humans to engage in stories. It's essential for our health and well-being to engage in stories. And it is the way that we operate. Stories still matter, and they will continue to matter as long as humans roam the earth. So anyone that tries to tell you that the word is dead is lying, or they just don't know, because this is the way that we relate to each other. And any TV show is started by words. It has been written down first. So the start of everything is in writing. So you, as business people, every branch of your business is tethered in the word. You may not like that. Some of you may not be natural writers, but that's why we're here. So you can learn to do this, and you can learn to do it well, beautifully, and authentically. And me, I just love stories. Like you probably love your favorite TV shows. I love stories, and I help writers shape their stories with precision and power for fun or for business and brands. So I believe that great writing is about connecting deeper to your heart, which is actually where I believe is your true voice. But often our fears drive us away from listening to our heart. But you're here, so you've obviously gone in the right direction. Here's the truth. Here's the truth. That sounds like an AI prompt. Here's the truth. Your business doesn't benefit from your anxious energy. We can actually sense that there is something false when you're creating from that energy. The same anxious to-do list energy is why we rely so much on AI to write all of our posts. But let me tell you, they aren't helping your business. It doesn't mean that, sorry, everything's in the way of my slides at the moment. It doesn't mean that we can't use AI. It just means that we need to focus on a few other things first. So here's a quote from Sylvia Plath. Sometimes I feel so stupid and dull and uncreative that I'm amazed when people tell me differently. Are you surprised by that? Maybe some of you have read some of her letters. So this quote actually comes from this book here, Sylvia Plath, Letters Home, correspondence from 1950 to 1963. And Plath was a highly intelligent and successful writer with an IQ recorded at around 160 at age 12. Yet she consistently grappled with these feelings of self-doubt. Now, the reason I bring this up with you today is because I get so many writers come to me saying, oh my God, I'm just not creative and I'm just not smart. I'm not a good writer. I can't do this. But even Sylvia Plath thought that. So we need to get over that now. And we need to start tapping into what I created in my classroom yesterday with those Year 10 students. And we need to start believing that we are highly intelligent, highly successful writers who can do wonders with the word and with our business. So what if your own words had the power to convey something touching, something magical, something meaningful, something that could potentially go viral, something that could influence real change? Not just a predictable scheduled post. Because we can create all of the posts that tick all the boxes, can't we, for our businesses? Like, oh, write a post for this to try and get people to click this, but is that meaningful? And is that actually creating real change? Is that actually tapping into anyone's heart spaces? So we're going to try this a different way now. We're going to tune into us first. So good writing is about listening to your heart and writing authentically, because that's what people can really feel. There's an energy to heart writing, but it's not just magic. We need to learn a few things first, or those words won't land on the page quite right. So that's why heart writing is a little bit different to other spiritual writing workshops, because I'm combining I've got a master's degree in creative writing. So I'm combining my academic knowledge with spirituality so that my writers who are on the more spiritual side, they can write as best as they can because they're actually learning proper techniques of writing, not just journaling. We're going deeper than just journaling in my courses. So here's my quick tips, and you might laugh at why has Rose put that picture up on the page? I'll tell you about it in a sec. All right. So rule number 1 is stop people pleasing. If you can't be yourself, if you can't write what matters to you, then what is the point? So I've put that picture up on the page there because that's actually a picture that I snapped the night after I finished my Bali writing retreat. I booked myself into this lush hotel. It was a really expensive hotel, and I just wanted to feel like a queen to celebrate my, this successful retreat that I ran. And, it's always nerve-wracking when you're holding space for a large group of people. And I was really proud of myself. And I've gotten to this point 5 years into my business where I really feel, like I've done something pretty cool, pretty magical. And you'll notice in my language right now, I'm saying things like pretty cool, which doesn't sound like a really, really spiritual person. But this is actually me. When I say things like, that's pretty cool, that's me. That sounds like something that Rose would say, not just this mask, heart writing teacher. It's very important to me that my students know who I really am, not this spiritual guise. Even though I am very spiritual, I'm also a whole lot of other contradictions. I'm a very rounded character. You'll learn more about characters in my workshops. So part of my character is I like having a wine and I like having a beer occasionally. So I remember snapping this photo. I've got this Bintang beer in my hand and I'm, about to crack it open, have a drink. I took the photo and then I remembered thinking, I'm going to put this on my personal page, but not my heart writing page, because maybe this will seem contradictory. But you know what? I have to be myself. And I think that a well-rounded personality is going to be something that draws people in more than a fake. So that's why I've included that today, because it does get you thinking, who do you want to be? Now, obviously, I'm not going to put up a heap of contradictory things all the time, but you'll notice when you read the Heart Writing Handbook that I swear, that I talk about doing naughty things on my travels. Like, I'm not the perfect person, and I don't try and create myself as a perfect person. And I think that's actually really working for me because I am attracting the right clients who believe in me and know that I have a few flaws as a person. And then the other part of this uh, this people pleasing rule that I have here is a quote from Natalie Goldberg's Writing Down the Bones, which is one of our texts that we look at in the writing workshop, is write what disturbs you, write what you fear, what you have not been willing to speak about. Be willing to be split open. That's where all the juicy stuff comes from. Rule number 2, create your defining voice, which kind of comes from rule number 1. Your voice is your defining trademark. Don't try to sound like someone else. Own who you are. So if I'm the kind of person that says cool a lot or the F word sometimes, then I might have to put that into my text, into my captions, into my book, so that people know who I really am and I have a voice. And this is a quote from the Heart Writing Handbook, which you will find in the voice chapter. So you'll get to read this very soon. Some of you already have your books in your hands. Rule number 3, create characters who pop. And this is also linked to rule number 1 and rule number 2. Because you need to get to know your character, but you are your first character. So even in social media writing, you will be creating people in your posts. You're creating characters in your posts. You're writing about your friend. You're writing an anecdote about your life. So you will need to draw upon people. And this is a whole craft in itself. I get really nerdy about this topic, actually. So you need to talk about appearance, action, speech, and other characters' reactions to that character. And shifting away from simple stereotypes is ideal, which is why I am such a contradictory character in who I am. And rule number 4, don't forget about setting. So if you're telling an anecdote about how you went to the shops this morning, that anecdote could really pop on the page if you give us a few details about the setting, about the smell. So think about the 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing. If you can just pepper your writing with a few of these details, it's going to make the atmosphere pop, and you're more likely, and I say this word, uh, you know, I have to be careful while saying this word, but you're more likely to manipulate your audience. And I don't really want you guys to be manipulating, but writing is a little bit about manipulating. We'll get into more detail with that in my actual courses, but you kind of do want to manipulate them a little bit, or at least you want your readers to feel what it is that you feel. And setting can actually really assist with this. Rule number 5, structure matters. What goes up in a story must go down, and vice versa. So what that means is that in a story, for it to be compelling, bad things have to happen and good things have to happen. Bad things have to happen and then good things have to happen. There needs to be a bit of balance to create suspense. Humans love suspense, and you will learn all about that in the Heartwriting Handbook. Rule number 6, you can add poetry to your prose to make it a little bit more exciting. So you can add things like metaphors, like her eyes blazed. Simile, which is her eyes blaze like a wildfire, so adding the word like. Alliteration, which is a repetition of consonants. The wind whirled. And onomatopoeia are sound words like bang, crash, pop, tick, all things to make your writing a little bit more exciting. By the way, AI, if you were to train your AI to say, can you add a few poetic conventions in my writing? That's what it will do. It will try and insert metaphor, similes, alliteration, onomatopoeia, and a whole list of other poetic techniques. But you've got to be really careful, because it might include cliches and it might overdo it. You've got to really know that everything is about moderation when it comes to writing. So do not rely too much on AI, because all of a sudden it will take your command and it will overdo it. And it will sound so cheesy and so cliched. And you need to know how to handle these things on your own. So make sure that you're not using well overused expressions, because these ones here have lost their impact because people use them too much. And rule number 7, read more. You need to read a lot. If you want to write better, you've just got to keep reading, and you also need to get out of your comfort zone. Because there's a lot of different types of writers, and the more writers on hand to utilize more of their techniques, the better writer you're going to become. So that means you really do need to get off social media and you need to start reading more books, because otherwise you're just getting thrown a lot of the same posts over and over again, and we're at risk of replicating the same boring content if you're not reading a lot to widen that scope. So you want to be the brand that stands out on the page. So hopefully these 7 tips are going to help you stand out. And now we're going to do the fun stuff. All right, so you've got all of that learning behind you now. Now we're going to drop into a lovely soft space. We're going to do a meditation together. Hope you're all okay to do a meditation. I don't mind if you guys lay down for this meditation. But basically, we're going to drop into the alpha and theta brainwave states. And this is the place of ultimate creativity. Up until this part of the workshop, you've been operating up here in beta brainwave. I can see that because you're busy taking notes, you're activated, you're learning, you're wanting to gain as much as you possibly can from this course. But actually, to be at your most creative, You literally, on a scientific level, you have to slow down. You won't be able to access your most authentic, natural words at the beta brainwave unless you've done a lot of writing and you can just, hand pick from your old archives of writing. But you've got to drop down now to find this authentic voice. Some of you won't even know what your authentic voice is. So that's what we're going to do today. And just to let you know that, the delta brainwave is when we're dead asleep, in that very deep REM brainwave, that REM sleep. And babies are always operating at delta. And as a baby gets older until, they become 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, they start operating at the theta brainwave, which is still a slow brainwave. And this is kind of a dreamy world building brainwave. This is why young children are really good at imagining world. You know how like young kids, they get completely lost in their little performances. It's quite amazing. And then suddenly, then the brainwave speeds up a bit. Alpha brainwaves are still quite creative. But from the age of about 12, we become a lot smarter, but this comes at an expense. Unfortunately, we're not as able to dive into the world building as much anymore. So you may have noticed, like, you stopped creating all those stories as you got older. You lost your creativity. That's just a normal part of getting older. We don't shame that, but it's just your reminder that as an adult, you have the ability actually to come back at any time. And in the Heart Writing Handbook, you'll learn about the interesting story about Thomas Edison and how he came up with his greatest ideas when he fell asleep and quickly woke himself up, because that was the point, that was the cusp of the theta brainwave. So he was well onto this. Maybe he didn't know that it was actually about the theta brainwave. But yeah, if we want to come up with our best ideas for business or for writing, then we need to meditate a lot more and quickly write down straight after the meditation. All right. So I've been talking very fast. I've been very high paced. I've been very beta brainwave. And now I'm going to slow down. We're all going to slow down now. Okay. So get really nice and comfy. You might want to take your journals with you if you're going to go lay down. Please feel free to lay down. You don't need to be on camera, obviously, for this part. We'll be in meditation for about 15 minutes or so. Katie, actually, just before we go into this, can you just let me know what's our cutoff? Like, if I go 15 minutes late,
Yeah,
will
it's
that be
fine. You can run over, no problem.
okay? I feel like we might need an extra 15 minutes. So just to
Yeah,
let you
no
guys know,
problem.
we might finish at 12:15. Okay.
No troubles.
All right. So make sure you've got your meditation music playing in the background if that assists you, because I'm all about the 5 senses or the extra senses. And if you need a little bit of that music to get you into this space, please use that. I use it all the time. And if you are seated, then do as I'm doing. I'm actually going to be sitting back and resting my head against the wall behind me, against the window behind me, so that I can also fully drop into this meditation with you. So make sure that you're feeling fully supported. You're not holding on to any tension in the face, in the shoulders. You're completely relaxed, completely rested, completely supported. And if you still feel like you're holding on, you're sitting up and you're holding on, just come down to the floor and rest. Rolling your shoulders back and relaxing every muscle from the forehead all the way down to the toes. Taking some deeper breaths through the heart space. And as we exhale, again, relaxing down all the muscles and completely letting go. Coming back to your face and noticing any tension still hanging on in your forehead or jaw, and kindly giving yourself permission now to completely let go and be in the present moment. The present moment. The present moment. There is a cloud that is picking you up. Imagine this cloud, this white fluffy cloud, is picking you up off the ground. It is hovering you above the floor. It is carrying you up through the roof and up towards the sky. You are now in the sky, looking down on your house, looking down on your suburb, watching the world with curiosity. Watching all the places that you've been in your life. And just looking at them all with awe as you travel around the planet, visiting each place that has made its mark on you in some way. Maybe from travels, or maybe from living, maybe from work. Slowly visiting 3 places that made the most mark on you, that taught you the most, that awakened you, that challenged you, that showed you the way. Taking a couple of silent minutes now to visit each place. And now coming back to the place that made the most impact on you. And let's get very specific about this place. If it was a travel destination, what was the place in the travel destination that taught you the most? If it was somewhere in your home city, what was the actual building or location that this thing happened that changed you? Imagine the building in great detail where this thing happened, or the place where this thing happened. What was the precise moment? What was the precise happening? What could you see in this building or this place? Go through the 5 senses: sight, smell, hearing, touch, and maybe taste. What were the ups and downs that brought you to this moment? What happened before this moment, the ups and downs? Just visualize a few of those key ups and downs that got you right here to this turning point moment in your life. And now, what happened after the turning point moment in this room, in this place? What were the ups and downs that followed? Now it's time for your cloud to take you away from this turning point in your life in gratitude and appreciation for all that has happened. As the cloud picks you up back into the sky, as you sail away from this place, your heart explodes with a feeling, and maybe there's lots of feelings: nostalgia, gratitude, love. Maybe you even felt the pain of some of those moments that you revisited. Let your heart fill with all of the feelings. As the cloud now carries you up into the rest of the clouds, as you travel now across cities, countries, as you travel back to where we first started, allow your heart to beam with this golden light, to beam with all of the lessons that came with this visit. Allow yourself to fill with new knowledge and joy. As the cloud slowly, slowly settles you back into the place that we first started. And just for a minute or so, stay here, stay where you are, basking in this golden light in your heart. This golden light of remembrance, of knowing, of gratitude, of love for all that has been to get you right here. Place a hand on your heart and feel your golden heart continue to expand. Very slowly starting to bring some awareness back into your body as you take some deeper breaths. Stretching out your hands above you, rolling your wrists, rolling your hands, stretching out your fingertips, rolling your feet, your ankles, stretching out your toes, deepening the breath, just really feeling into the magic of being back in your body again. Many of you running businesses where you're holding a lot of space for others. So just let yourself enjoy this space that's being held for you today. Surrendering to the presence of this. And no need to rush. Rolling yourselves off to the right side, curling up like a little child that's been allowed to be back into their imagination again. Feel your brain alive. You might feel groggy, but your brain is coming back online. And when you're ready, coming back to a seated position of your choice. And for 5 minutes or so, maybe longer, I'll keep an eye on the time. You are going to write down exactly what happened in that meditation, starting wherever you would like. You might like to concentrate on the room that was the turning point, the situation, the place that was your turning point. You might want to write briefly about the ups and downs that came before that turning point, and then describe the turning point in detail and the lesson that came from that. There are no rules to writing. Just write from the heart. Let your heart lead you. Your heart has the voice to write what needs to be written. Let her lead. All the techniques can come later. That's what editing is for. Make the most of the alpha and theta brainwave that you're in right now. Okay, just 30 more seconds, finishing off where you're at. Obviously, you'll be writing for a lot longer and you can keep writing at the end of this session. This screenshot here, if you wanted to take a photo of it, it could help you to keep writing after the session. Beautiful. Well done, everyone. Well done, writers. Your first time heart writing, or maybe you've done something like that before. But I would love to hear how you felt, what you wrote about. You don't have to get detailed into the story because um, I think it would be beautiful to finish the story and create something out of that story. So either share the story with the group through email, perhaps, um, post the story once you've finished editing it and using all these techniques. Post the story on a blog, and then utilize it by maybe using AI to help you summarize the story into a social media post, into a short caption, and then an even shorter caption for something like Threads. So you can then utilize social media, you can utilize ChatGPT or various forms of AI. Once you've written the authentic piece and you train AI to not mess around with the authenticity of the piece, and I'm going to teach you a few ways to do that in a moment, just very quick tips that things that I do. But right now, I'd like you just to share, like maybe briefly, what the turning point was, not the entire story, and what was the revelation of all of this activity for you? How did you feel? What surprised you? And also, the next slide, what, you know, did your voice sound a certain way when you started writing? This also could be something that surprised you. Basically, whatever you want to share, come off mute if you like, or type it in the chat box. Be brave.
I'm happy to share.
Thanks, Emma.
I went to various places in that visualization, and that was really interesting for me to really almost connect three places that have been really significant. But I focused in on this dark, musty yoga room in Rishikesh that really was a big turning point in my life. So describing that, excuse me, something dinging there. Describing that, and I love using the senses, so I really enjoyed going back there. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so, and that's a story that maybe you wouldn't have thought to use as a post to draw your audience in. And so, it's interesting, like, how I use the term manipulate before. You can see how these writing techniques can really manipulate, but I like to think of it as a good kind of manipulation. It's not a toxic manipulation. It's not necessarily for marketing purposes. It's about connection. That's the manipulation. And that's why I was, hesitant to use that word before. But we do, when we're English teaching, when we're teaching students, we do say to them, these are persuasive techniques. They are manipulative techniques because they are tried and tested methods that humans have used for millennia to get people to engage. So that's beautiful that you love doing the activity, because it means you could do a lot more of this and you could write a lot more really interesting stories for your audience. I love that, the musty smells of that yoga room. And you know what? You've hardly shared anything about the story, and yet I'm already there. Anyone else like to share? Some of you might be typing in the chat box. I'll keep going if no one's going to share. Do you want to share,
do a
Katie?
really quick share. Yeah, I was thinking about a time when I met someone who's become a dear friend of mine in Nepal. We were both in our early 20s and it was before the internet existed. So we bumped into each other in a cafe in Kathmandu and we became friends. He lived in San Francisco and I lived in London, but we ended up seeing quite a bit of each other over the years. Like we met in Europe. Like it wasn't a romantic affair. It was just like a friendship. And then we lost touch for ages. And then recently, he was in Sydney randomly, and I literally hadn't seen him for 20 years. He was here with his wife and his kids. And he Facebook messaged me and he was like, I'm in Sydney for like 3 hours. Can we meet for a coffee? And we did. And it was so lovely to reconnect. And I just
Wow.
remembered so potently when we met up again recently, because we hadn't seen each other for so long, the feeling of being in my 20s again, like it was
Yeah.
literally like time travel. Like both of us, and obviously we've both aged a lot and had a bunch of kids and whatever since then, but it just was such a visceral memory of like 20-year-old me. It was quite incredible.
Oh, I love that. And again, another story that you may not have thought of unless you were in that present meditative state.
Definitely would not have done. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. Anyone else? So KO says that she was in the water flowing river came down from the sky. I wanted to stay in the water and just keep drifting away, but sunshine came into the moss covered river rocks. I felt the need to get out from the water, tackling the daily tasks ahead. Ah, sad. Yes. That's beautiful though, but you really got into it, and that's quite magical. I love that. Anyone else? I always like to just give a bit of time just in case. All right. So Calpita said, I took a good nap. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's totally fine. She said she really need to replay and do it again. So that's the bonus of this. You can replay this class as many times as you like and keep doing it, and then come up with like a perfect, authentic post. And that's kind of why I did the particular visualization that I did for you guys today, which is unlike anything that I've done for other groups, because usually I focus on we start with inner child work. We start, we do a lot of weird things in heart writing, I suppose, but we do a lot of inner child work, and we also do a lot of narrative writing work. So this one was very specific to business, because I thought, what's a really cool visualization that could show your clients a turning point? Because that's often the story that we're telling in business, is the transformation story that inspires others. So yeah, hopefully that will be really helpful for you to replay and keep coming back to maybe a different memory, a different place, a different circumstance every time that becomes this inspiration story for your clients. But it's very real, you're not fabricating it, it's very authentic. and you're getting very present with what actually happened. And that's how I do all of my writing, to be honest. I do both fiction and nonfiction writing. The last few things I've had published are nonfiction, and I need to get really present with the memory. And it's quite amazing, even memories that are 5-10 years ago. You don't have to write immediately after an event happens, because like Katie did, your brain is incredible when you come into the subconscious. Incredible what you can bring back and bring authentically back to the page. So don't let anyone fool you that, you have to write immediately after something happens, because you can always conjure it using meditation. All right, so we've got the point, haven't we? Okay, it's not just about writing authentically. As I've said, there are techniques that you're going to need to use. And so, part of my process is, because I'm also a trained editor, I love using editing. So before we even talk about AI, I just wanted to point out to you that editing can be a really fun thing to do. You kind of have to get out of this mindset of like, oh, I've got to rush a post and just quickly click post. I would prefer that if you wanted it to be a really strong post, that you hold off from posting immediately and you let it run a few times with good editing. And I don't mean ChatGPT editing. I mean, first few rounds need to be you paying attention to how did I structure it? Because you can't let ChatGPT do this for you. It messes it up. It can't do the same job that you can do. So you need to look at the structure and say, does it have the rise and falls of a good storyline that it needs, Um, does it have a good character in there? Am I characterized in this piece effectively? Is the setting vibrant? Is there too much setting? Is it becoming boring and you've forgotten about the plot? So you have to put your editor cap on and just kind of deal with the fact that you need to do a few different rounds. Some of my students often ask me, how many drafts do you need to do? And I'm like, as many as you can, like you can perfect this piece. You could take 20 edits, and it's still not enough. That's what I do. And that's what professional writers do. They don't just click post as soon as they throw something into their notes app. They actually think about the impact on their readers, and it's a craft. So they might spend hours and hours and hours. And I know you might be thinking, oh, I haven't got hours and hours and hours to do this, but it might just become a natural part of your day. And because it's creative writing, it might become a really fun, beautiful part of your day, and you'll get quicker at it too. So where does AI come in? So once you've got your finished story, however long it is, you can now cut it up into various forms, different formats for different parts of your business. Maybe you need it for an email, like a really nice storytelling email. But for an email, you're going to need a really good hook, because if you don't have a good heading with a good intro, paragraph, no one's going to read that whole story anyway. So you're going to have to utilize some different techniques to get a really nice hooky email. I can't get into all of the forms of writing, not in one workshop, not when I take, an 8-week workshop with 2.5 workshops every single workshop, like it takes a long time to learn all of this stuff. So I'm just giving you some quick snapshots of what you can do right now. And so what about AI? You can use it, but don't abuse it. Create your own story first, preferably by hand, then type it up, adding your techniques. Clean it up if you need using AI. So just do like a proofread. Put a few mistakes or idiosyncrasies back in. Believe it or not, I'm actually suggesting to make it look like there's a couple of mistakes in there, because then it will prove that you really wrote it in a world where everything is becoming a little bit too perfect. Just have a look at, how could you make it a little bit more real? I don't literally mean I don't really literally mean put a few mistakes, because I can't stand, seeing, a comma out of place or a spelling mistake or whatever for my own work. But I just mean, is there a way you could make it more human? Then get AI to summarize for you to create different types of posts. But again, be very careful with this. Don't trust it too much is the basic message. You know, it makes heaps of mistakes. You can only trust you and your own voice. If it ends up sounding inauthentic, you may as well throw it in the bin. Because I can tell you that when I see a post that looks like it's been generated from ChatGPT, I won't read it. I will not be connecting with that brand because it doesn't speak at all to me. And it actually suggests to me that that brand or that person behind the brand didn't care enough to put their heart and soul into their words. You're actually better off making some mistakes. But there are great ways to use AI. And one of them is cleaning up your work and condensing into different formats. I love doing that. Like I pretty much do that for my podcast episodes, turning a podcast into a Instagram post. I still have to fix it. It still won't sound like me, even if I train it, but it can be very time saving for me. So I'm not going to lie and say I don't use it. I definitely use it a lot. All right. So, yeah, this is my main message today for you guys is just keep reading, keep meditating, open your heart and just keep writing. And here's a list of texts to get started besides from my handbook. Now that I have my handbook, I almost don't need to give people a big list, but you know, these are some of my, you know, number one texts that I go to if I want to be inspired about writing. I mention Helen Garner because she is just a very amazing Australian author who she's worked very hard to create a voice and a style that works for her. And she's very honest and open about her life. So I always say to start with her if you want to learn excellent craft. Please say hi to me on heartwriting.com.au. And the other reason to say hi to me is have a look at my posts. Have a really good look at how I write on social media. And I don't write on social media the same way that I write my experimental creative writing. Even the Heart Writing Handbook, this is written for a purpose. It's a textbook. It's got a bit of storytelling in there. It's got my natural voice in there, but it's not what I trained for in my creative writing degree. My actual creative writing is very weird, experimental. I don't put that up on Instagram. My Instagram is to connect with my clients so that my clients can get to know me. Okay. So you'll just notice that my posts are not showing off. They're not trying to sound too poetic. They're just trying to connect me with you. So I want you to have a look at how I've done that. Maybe that's a good example for you. And comment on them or comment to us as a group, like how you could learn from that. And then I've just popped up here if you want to know what I do. Basically, I teach a signature course. It's an 8-week course. It starts in February of every year. It goes for actually 8 fortnights to give people a lot of time to do their writing in between the classes. And then it's followed by a level 2 course, which is a book writing course in semester 2. That's pretty much all I do besides from editing people's books and teaching, basically. Yeah. Any questions? Cal Peters just said, "Hey Rose, I wanted to ask, will a touch of poetry appeal to highly logical audience?" Yeah, honestly, poetry attracts everybody if you use it moderately. Yeah, and Katie's just said that herself. Yeah, I believe we all need romance and poetry, even the most logical minded people, perhaps them even more. Yes. Poetry helps people to break out of the logic and come into emotion. And that's what you kind of want, actually, particularly for those logical people, is how do we get them feeling something? Because if you can get someone to feel something, they're more likely to engage with you and feel sympathy and empathy. And that's actually what gets people buying things, manipulating. Whoops.
Encouraging, gently encouraging.
Encouraging.
Thank you so much, Rose. That was awesome. And I definitely highly recommend all of your resources and your course. And I know that these guys are going to be pretty flat out over the next few weeks with the business training. So they're probably feeling like they don't have a lot of capacity right now. But you do have a free, is it a 10-day free process that they can go through?
Yeah,
Maybe
I
not
have.
now, but if they want to do a bit more later, can you tell
Yeah,
us a little bit about
absolutely.
that?
I have a taster pack that's got some free classes in
That's
there
great.
that I will send you guys. And I have the 10-day course, which it is a paid course, but it's a
Oh,
pretty
that's a smaller one. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, it's free. It comes free with the signature workshop.
Yeah.
That's probably why, yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for everyone who joined us live. And I really hope that this has given you guys a different way of thinking about your sharing and your writing and what's going to really bring it to life. And thank you so much for your time and energy, Rose. Really, really appreciate everything that you do.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me, and good luck in your course.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Talk to you all soon.
Thanks,
Thanks, Rose.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.